Here we have a quote from Ken Ham. In a presentation I give to children about dinosaurs, one of the fun things I do to teach them about how to think in regards to origins is to teach them to ask, were you there, when anyone talks about millions of years? The problem is, that's not teaching. That is indoctrination. Real education involves giving kids to ask questions, telling them what it's like to actually critically analyze evidence, and providing them with good answers, even if your answer is, I don't know. Real education teaches you how to think, not what to think. It doesn't contradict itself the way that Ken Ham's poor attempt at teaching does. What do I mean by contradicting itself? Well, how do you think Ken Ham would respond if you were to give him that very same lazy attempt at a gotcha question about the resurrection or the Garden of Eden? Were you there? Did you see it happen? How do you really know? Instead of the stammering answer that he expects us to give, he would point you to the Bible, the claim, not the evidence. This works for Answers in Genesis because they believe that every single word of the Bible is completely and unequivocally true. That's why they famously don't believe in things like evolution or the billions of years age of the earth, but they do believe in things like unicorns, fire-breathing flying dragons, a worldwide flood, and that all 8 billion people that live on this planet are the product of extreme incest. When you're literate in science, asking, were you there, is not a hard-hitting question. But for creationist apologists, it's an everlasting thought stopper. It's Answers in Genesis' weak attempt to drag science and reason down to their level, because they know that they can't rise to ours. And to hide the fact that their beliefs are so ridiculous that, unlike Deep Time, you really do need to see it to believe it. But hey, if you think that Ken Ham is onto something, then give us a call, because the show starts right now. Hi there. I'm Forrest Valkai, a man who just stammered his way through an intro, and I'm joined today by the charming and handsome Seth Andrews. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm well. We're sitting here bracing for the cold. The wind is rattling the house. Gusts 250 and a 2-degree wind chill. I know the people to our north are looking at us and sort of smirking because our winters they don't really qualify as winters, but it's kind of a big deal. And this is what a softie I am. We're driving back from tennis today and we see some deer sort of off in a field. And I'm like, oh, the poor deer. Like, I have no idea how they are evolutionarily wired for weather changes. So I just want to scoop all the animals up and put them in the car and take them to a warm barn and put blankets on them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I worry about the creatures whenever the things get cold out there. So.
Have you seen those pictures of, like, it shows like these sad pets, and it's like, if you're cold, they're cold, bring them inside, and then they have the same image, but it's like Mothman and Bigfoot and Satan, and it's like, just bring them in. If you're cold, they're cold. You need your help.
I've seen it done with husbands, like a husband looking through the back door, and he's like, don't
do that one. Don't do that one.
Pretty funny. So
you want a husband, the thing that killed all those women on Dateline? No, thank you.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Terrible. Okay.
All right.
We've got a great show. We've got a show, at least, for you guys today. So thanks so much for tuning in. Before we begin, there's a couple of things I got to let everybody know. The first is that the Atheist Experience is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. The second thing that I got to let you know is that we have a question of the week section. We're going to give you the results of the last week's Share Your Experience question. Last live show, we asked you, if the Bible had a post-credit scene, what would it show? Here are our 3 favorite answers, and I say our 3 favorite answers. I mean Johnny P. Angel's 3 favorite answers, because he's the one who chose these, so blame him. Number 3, post-credits Bible scene, the serpent from Adam and Eve's story steps out of the post-Armageddon Holocaust and quotes, if the shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended. That you have slumbered here, while these visions did appear. It's a Midsummer Night's Dream reference. I love it. Number 2, we've got Bible post-credits scene, Jesus cracking jokes during the crucifixion scene bloopers. Love that. And then finally, number 1, Bible post-credits scene, the screen goes black And then there's a sliver of light that widens as the person who was watching removes the VR headset and turns to the tech team behind them. Okay, guys, I finished the beta test. Almost all the problems you're encountering in the program can be eliminated if you remove that forbidden fruit near the start. It makes sense. It makes sense. And today we've got a new question of the week for you. The prompt this week is complete the sentence. I hope the Bible got at least blank right. One thing that you hope that the Bible got right. What do you think, Seth? Do you have a particular answer?
Well, it's not a good one, but I just came off of a conversation with somebody about angels in the Bible. We were talking about cherubim as described in the book of Ezekiel, and how if these things genuinely existed as described, they would be one of the most terrifying / maybe awesome things in the history of everything. And these are creatures with like 6 wings, and they're covered with eyeballs. And their task is to tend to Yahweh and, at the throne. So I guess Yahweh has needs or wants or things to be done. And so the cherubim attend to the great God of Christianity. But there are artist illustrations. There are AI photographs or photograph painting. I don't know what you call them. And they're terrifying, but they're kind of awesome. So I thought, well, if the Bible was right about anything, and the cherubim existed and they were out there just flying around covered in eyeballs, I'm kind of good with it. I don't know why. I just like my world would like those in them. I just, that's me. Yeah, I think so.
Fitting. The Lovecraftian nightmare is fitting the rest of what the Bible proposes.
Yes.
That's great. Leave your answers down in the chat. And
what's yours? Wait a minute. You asked me if the Bible was true about.
I was trying to move on because I didn't have a good one because I was embarrassed. I thought it was like there's a lot of parts of the Bible that I like, but none of them that are like things that exist. You know what I mean? Like there's because number one, I'm going to give a similar answer to you because the book of Revelation is a freaking fever dream and it's wild. And I love it. I love everything in there because I like weird and scary shit. But like the things that I like about the Bible are like the parts that actually have good commandments in them, where it's like, if you have a bunch of, if you have a farm, don't harvest this portion of the field and leave it there for people passing by that need free food. I love that. You know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff that I want to be real about the Bible. If there is a God, I wanted to say shit like that. But like anything about the structure of reality based around this belief system, I'm just not into. And so I don't know. I didn't have a fun answer. So I was trying to move on to more fun things.
That's fair. And, it's funny when you talk to religious people, Christians specifically, about the Bible, and they talk about like, don't lie to people, don't harm people. Don't be a dick, essentially. And they talk about whatever those good commandments are. And you can find good in the Bible if you look. They act like these were never asserted or written down, or there were never any moral codes pre-biblical civilization. So, the Sumerians, I don't know what they were doing, but certainly they had no moral codes. So I think, the idea that we could extract a few things, I just always make sure to say, don't be shitty to people is not indigenous to the Bible. Cultures throughout human history have had these sort of moral edicts and structures and frameworks for how to build a pro-social civilization, community, etc. Oh, but the weird stuff to me is awesome. Like if donkeys could actually speak Hebrew, I think that'd be cool.
I'd be into it.
You're going through the live nativity scene, the Christmas nativities where you drive your car through and there's the live animals and you just roll down the window and you say something and the dog, well, I'd take dogs, or the donkey responds in Hebrew. I think that'd be kind of cool. So anyway,
but only donkeys and only Hebrew for no reason. Like there's nothing else. You know what I mean? I guess like one time a snake, and so what it doesn't matter. It's just,
or maybe like an animalized Tower of Babel, where each animal speaks a totally conflicting language, and yet none of them are bilingual or trilingual. None of the animals know what the others are saying. That would be kind of a fun deal. Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
I do think, you talk about it like it's about, don't be a dick in terms of like this edict in the Bible. I think it's especially poignant in the Bible because the Bible is very clear about what you should be doing with dicks. And if you're a dick, then what are they going to cut off the top of your head? Like, what's that? You know what I mean? So it sounds to me like there's some implication here that we're missing out on.
Well, and I have to throw this out before somebody quote minds me. I'm not saying the Bible is a good book, right? We take the Bible as a whole. I was talking to Bart Campolo, who is a humanist chaplain and the son of the late evangelist Tony Campolo. Bart kind of walked away from fundamentalism, and he's done a lot of humanist work. And we were talking about the Bible, and he's like, I can make the Bible do anything you want it to do. You want love? Oh, there are verses in there. You want charity? You want feed the poor? You want alleviate suffering? There are wonderful pieces. And do you want hate and death and slavery and pain and misogyny and all those other things, genocide? I can make the Bible do that. It's amazing because whatever your want/need might be when it comes to Christianity, you can cherry pick a verse that will line up with whatever it is that you were trying to do. It's not even fair to say it's a schizophrenic book. It's a multiple personalities book, really. So
yeah, I think it was Shakespeare who said that the devil himself can quote scripture to suit his purposes, and like that really it is so all over the place, and there's no point where you can get anything good out of it that you can't find 15 horrible things to go along with it, or twist even the best things to be just as evil. And so and that's why we have people call in as slavery apologists or misogyny apologists or whatever else and say no, you don't understand, really it means this, and this is the new modern beautiful interpretation. Okay, great. Even if I accept that is the correct interpretation, why is it acceptable to you that the past however many hundreds, maybe a couple thousands of years of interpretations of this thing have been so horrific, using the same reading of the same book? Is the Bible getting better over time, or are people getting better over time? And it can't be that the people are getting better at reading the Bible. You're closer to the shit back then. You should have a better example, a better explanation. It should be getting, if anything, more conflated and more conflicted and more problematic over time. But it seems to be getting better, almost as if society is evolving and you're just dragging this Bronze Age sex manual along with you. I don't know, man.
Oh, wait, I'm writing that down. Bronze Age sex manual. Hang on, I got
That's what it is.
No, I got it. I
guess strictly speaking, Iron Age. It's because it's just the collection of things, and I guess Iron Age is when it was really compiled. But
all right,
the vast majority of, especially the Old Testament, is sex instructions, sacrifice instructions, food instructions. It's sex, slaughter, and cooking is what it is. And that's, and it's, I don't know, man.
Marking that the sex, slaughter, and cooking. Lots of good stuff. Lots of great nuggets.
Thank you. Yes, I'm starting off the show real weird.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'm there. I'm with you.
I've got I missed out on a little. I should have said sex, slaughter, and supper. That would have been way better. It doesn't matter. The point is, we've got a show, and we're going to jump into calls. Lines are open right now, so call that number at the bottom of the screen. If you believe that you have a reason to believe in the God of the Bible or in any other supernatural thing, if you believe in ghosts, angels, demons, gods, goddesses, magic, any of those things, we'd love to talk to you. Or if you're a science denier of any kind, if you're a creationist or a flat earther or a transphobe or an anti-vaxxer or some other thing, I don't know what the opposite of a Big Bang is, a Big Bang unenthusiast. I don't know. If you don't believe in science, or if you do believe in magic, this is the show for you. Give us a call, and we'd love to talk to you. Calls always go as politely and as nicely as the callers allow us to. With that, do you have a preference in terms of the people who are already in the call queue?
Oh, I'm browsing. People are, they're. The challenge is when you've done counter apologetics, there's not a lot new under the sun. I would like to maybe talk to Arti about being mere atoms. I mean, I guess we can start there. Yeah.
I think that's a great place to start. So we're going to bring on Arti, pronouns they, them. Calling in from the UK, wants to know, why does anything matter if everything is just atoms and nothing else? Arti, you're on the line with Forrest and Seth. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you so much for calling in. All right, so just so we get a baseline and understand what we're talking about here, are you calling in as a theist or as an atheist, or do you prefer not to say?
Something kind of in between. I did want to say a huge thanks to both of you for starting me on this journey of just maybe deconstructing and questioning. It's been mostly thanks to your Reacteria series and the Christianity made me talk like an idiot kind of series talk. that meant
Thank
that
you.
I started
Hey, Arti,
thinking about this.
Arti, if I'm saying, I hope I'm saying your name correctly.
Yeah?
Can I back you off of your phone just a little bit? For some reason, it's overmodulating and there's a little bit of distortion. I think we can mitigate that if I can just pull your mouth away from the microphone just an inch or two. Otherwise, you sound great. Okay.
Yeah, I just have headphones on, so I can try and talk quieter. Is that any better?
That's perfect. And thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Headphones make it worse, but I understand some people got to use them.
Sorry. I have a tendency to talk loud when I'm nervous as well. So sorry.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine.
You're doing great. No reason to be nervous.
Question.
You've got Seth, who is incredibly kind, and myself, who is incredibly stupid, here to talk to you. You have nothing to be nervous about. So we, you're saying, why does anything matter if we're just atoms and nothing else? Walk me through your thing, because I can give you my answer, but like it's just going to be me preaching at you for a second. Like, walk me through your thought process here. Like, what is the implication here? If everything is just atoms, which we can say, I think you and I can probably agree on atomic theory, but like, you're saying, assumingly, that there's some extra element to it, and I'm saying there isn't. If everything was just atoms, why then would you assume that there's nothing matters? That like where does the meaning come from if there's something more than atoms?
Well, so to clarify, this is actually my father's question to me because he's not particularly happy with my questioning. So I'm not necessarily on this side, but I don't have a good answer for him.
Okay.
But it's basically the idea that, so if I'm just made of atoms, you're just made of atoms, this phone is just made of atoms, why does it matter that we are in this particular orientation of atoms, but the phone doesn't matter as much? Like, why does it matter if people die or get sick or something like that, if it doesn't matter if a phone gets destroyed or broken? Or like, what is it that one particular atom orientation matters and the other one doesn't, I guess?
Okay, so then if there's a couple ways that I can answer this. Seth, do you have a particular way? Because I have two different angles and I don't want to overwhelm.
I usually start that conversation with, why would something need to be eternal to have value? Right?
Yeah.
Why would something temporary not be perhaps even more valuable? Right? I don't understand why eternity and value are married in that way. And that usually sort of shifts the conversation back right off the bat to the person saying, well, if we don't live forever, why bother? And is that the vibe that you're getting from your parent, Arti?
I think so, but not quite exactly. I think it's more the case of, we've decided that, killing humans is wrong, but we've decided that destroying the phone isn't wrong. But if there isn't, people were created for a purpose, or people have this kind of, soul or something, then why does it matter that people die, but it doesn't matter that phones get destroyed? It's less the eternal. It's more the case of, where does ethics come from, I guess.
Yeah, so that's what it sounds like. Is it's trying to make not necessarily a straw man, but kind of this really reductive view of like nihilist philosophy. And that's my biggest issue with this, is that this is philosophy, not religion. This is somebody's desire for meaning superseding their need for evidence in for what they're actually, in terms of what they're believing. Your dad is asking, well, what does it matter? This configuration of atoms versus that configuration of atoms. Well, me personally, I am a nihilist and an atheist as well. I don't think that there's anything more to us than, atoms and such. I don't think there's anything beyond the physical universe. And I also don't believe in meaning or that anything matters. I don't think that there's any inherent value or worth or matter nothing matters inherently at all, period. I don't believe there's any inherent value or worth to anything in the whole universe, period. And I'm able to still derive meaning and joy and happiness and value for myself out of things. And I'm still not a bad guy. And I still don't kill people and all these things, because I understand like how societies work. I have universal moral principles beyond just not wanting to go to jail or not wanting to hurt anybody because I was told not to. I have, I think, pretty solid moral development in spite of this nihilistic philosophy. I would say because of, but for somebody like your dad that thinks that nihilistic philosophy in this way is inherently going to be a bad thing, or at least it sounds like that's what he thinks anyway, then like I would say that, even regardless of that, I'm still coming out the other side, not a jerk.
Yeah, but Forrest, at some point, do we differentiate, maybe this is where her father's going, between the inanimate object that cannot feel pain or joy, cannot recognize harm because it is not conscious, and the human animal or any animal or whatever that can. Is that a distinction that we have to make?
I think it should be. I mean, that's considering the fact that suffering is only available to thinking things. Like there is no morality on a planet made of entirely rocks with no living things on it. There is no morals there. There's nothing there you could do that is an immoral situation, because those rocks can't feel pain, they can't feel suffering, anything like these. It sounds a lot like morality is directly tied to life and specifically tied to consciousness. And so like I can use that kind of idea to draw some morality and some meaning for myself, even though I don't believe those things actually literally objectively exist. But again, I can't stress enough, that's just me. Like there's plenty of atheists out there, plenty of secularists out there, plenty of people who don't believe in anything beyond atoms that have different philosophies from me and derive different meanings from me. What it sounds like your dad is doing is using a philosophical argument in place of a scientific one and saying there must be more, because otherwise I don't have a reason to care about, not necessarily to be a good person, but like to care about anything. And I think that's silly. That doesn't really make any sense to me.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Sorry, quick correction, Seth. It's they, not she. But
oh, please forgive me.
I think that answer kind of makes sense. So it's sort of, it's okay. So it's like it doesn't really necessarily have to be a specific higher thing that gives meaning. It's more, because this atom orientation has consciousness, and consciousness denotes, can convey suffering or joy or love or something, then that's where we can kind of find meaning and put meaning. It's not purely scientific. Okay, that's cool. That makes sense. I have to give that answer to him and see what he says.
Yeah, for me, I people ask a lot of times, they're like, what do you have, like objective morality without God or whatever like that? And that is usually what I point back to, is like, I understand biomedical science. I understand health and well-being. I understand suffering. And so like those are ways that I can derive some sort of objective standard for morality. I can say like this thing is going to hinder human health and flourishing. It's going to hold back humanity. It's causing undue suffering to conscious agents. Like this is now a negative thing. I don't think there's anything like pure bad or at least there's very, very few things I would say are very always bad or always good. But like, just like most things, this is kind of a spectral thing. There's a lot of stuff in the middle. I loved the way that Sam Harris put it. One of the things that I agree with him on is the idea of a moral landscape, that there are peaks and valleys of morality, but there are some peaks that are higher than others and some valleys that are deeper than others. And there's a continuum, a gradient all the way up and down. And it's a, multi-dimensional thing. It's not just a straight line up and down. There's a lot there. And while I certainly don't think that anybody's going to consult a supercomputer someday to figure out, the morality of how much they could donate to a homeless shelter or where they should go to college or where they should go to lunch or anything like that, I do think you can make calculations based on the natural world to come up with what matters, what's good, why you should do this, that, or the other. And you don't need to rely on any kind of a supernatural thing to ground that in. And again, I can't stress enough, that's just my way of thinking. That's just my way of doing it. Atheism isn't a philosophical position. It's, so I can't speak for everybody.
Gotcha. Cool. That makes sense. Do you know where, because I've been stuck with Christian morality for ages, and now suddenly it's like, oh, I need to find a new moral basis for something, and I don't really know where to look. Do you have any recommendations of hey, here's a thing that talks about morality separate from religion, and just something along those lines to start rebuilding this kind of worldview that I've just had taken from under me, and I don't really know what to replace it with?
If you ask me, I would not be able to give you a solid answer for two reasons. Number one, because I am not a philosophy face. I'm not a philosopher. That's the word. Philosophy face. I'm not a philosophy guy. It's not really my jam. I know philosophers that I like, but I would just be giving you my stuff again, and I don't want to supplant your belief system with mine. That's not appropriate for me to do. If you want to look up philosophers that I like and see where my worldview comes from.
Yeah, sorry? It's just like where to find things, it's just because for so long it's just been, this is right because the Bible says this, and then suddenly there's this whole like, okay, but morality can be subjective or based on these kind of random things. I just wonder if there's like, I don't know, something that talks about, this is kind of more. Sorry, I'm nervous again.
If I may, I think I know where you're going. If I can jump in quickly, I think you may want to give yourself a little more credit. Like, I don't know that you need. I mean, we all need to get into conversations about how we tick and how the mind works and how ethical centers have been really a key to human survival and thriving. But I would suspect you're better at this than you think already. In fact, I will bet that much of your journey out of fundamentalist faith was because your moral alarm system was going off and you're like, well, this doesn't seem right and that bothers me and I don't think that that is moral, and that's something that is innate. And I feel like that inside of you already have the foundation for being able to ask many of these questions. A lot of people like to frame morality as acting to minimize harm. And the apologist will say, well, who's to say what's harmful, which is supposed to be a gotcha? I don't think it is, because I think we as feeling creatures, thinking creatures, emoting creatures, creatures related to all other creatures on the planet and knowing it, I think we understand what harm looks like, what it feels like. And so you may already have a head start far further than you think you do as to what's moral, what's ethical, what's right, what's humanistic. And while there are some great resources, there's an old article by Sam Harris called The Myth of Secular Moral Chaos. I think that's what it was called. And there are some philosophers like Daniel Dennett, et cetera, that get into the moral arguments as related to free will, et cetera. All of those, they're important. But I think you may already be better tooled up than you think you are. So give yourself some credit, okay?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, cheers, thanks. Yeah, it's a lot of like, I saw videos from you guys about people trying to justify slavery, and it's like, okay, no, this is wrong. Something is up. I need to start looking at this. And yeah, the more I looked at it, it's like, no, this is outrightly just wrong.
And that is so freaking gutsy.
I'm also a scientist. I'm
seriously cool.
Yeah, because I'm also a scientist. I'm trying to be like, okay, now that I've thrown this out, which I was mostly just believing on irrationality and emotion anyway, I want to find something reasonable and evidentiary and scientific, and I want to start with some facts and then work from there. So I'm just kind of trying to find facts and stuff that I can acquire and then start to try and rebuild an actual evidence-based worldview rather than something that's just like, oh yeah, no, just believe this, it's fine.
What kind of science do you do?
So, yeah, cheers, thanks. That's a great answer to give my dad anyway.
Forrest is asking what kind of science you do.
Oh, I'm currently studying to try and get my PhD in synthetic biology and biochemistry.
Wow.
Yeah! More biologists is what I'm talking about. Yes.
Well, I will say this. When you get into conversations, secular conversations about ethics, it is still the Wild West out there. And there are a lot of different positions. And so I'm not convinced. It's not like, evolutionary science where we're going to see all of this hard data. I think the information you're going to receive, retrieve, procure, find, discover, whatever, it's going to be a different animal, if you will. But I hear in you somebody who thought, well, slavery is immoral. I mean, you already innately realized that, and it was part of your exit. So that inspires me. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, looks like they just dropped. Unfortunately, I don't know if they had a problem with their phone or if their earbud messed up or whatever. But like, if they're still watching, Arti, if you're still out there, Judge, which I hope you tune in and just kind of catch the end of this. I want to just mirror what Seth said. If you want more reasons to kind of start questioning the Christian morality that you were brought up with, check out Christopher Hitchens. He's a huge inspiration that kind of tears into that quite a bit. Famously, wrote an amazing book called "God Is Not Great" that'll really elucidate a lot of feelings that a lot of us anti-theists share. And if you want more secular groundings for morality and whatnot, me personally, I find a lot of meaning and a lot of value out of like ancient stoicism, not the modern quote, quote, stoic, where it's just gym bros talking about how you shouldn't have feelings. But like, actual ancient Stoicism, talking about Epicurus and Epictetus, and not Epicurus, but Epictetus and Seneca the Younger, and a little bit of Marcus Aurelius, and also the criticisms of them as well, and also a lot of cosmic nihilism and driving that into absurdism and driving that into existentialism, and is learning how to smile at the meaninglessness of the universe. Death smiles at all of us, and the best we can do is smile back. And I find a lot of meaning in that. But again, that's just me. But if you're a scientist as well, and especially if you're a biologist as well, that'll resonate with you, I think, because like I find, especially from a biology background, there's a weird spin that your philosophy takes when you spend your life learning about the war of nature, about famine and death, and about how horrific things bring about the beauty of life around us. So check that out, and I think you might like it. And if not, then that's fine. Nobody has to care.
You remind me of a line from one of my favorite films, and the line is, "He's a nihilist," and the dude says, "Oh, that must be exhausting." I don't know. For some reason, if you haven't seen The Big Lebowski, I'm sorry. I've got nothing else for you. But it's a classic film. So
I think I watched it when I was in like high school, but I don't really remember it at all. But I'll have to go back and check. It would have marked you.
No one watches Lebowski casually. No. You didn't actually see it. There was something else going on. You were busy. But I'm interested in, because I'm kind of half able to see the chat. Nihilism means you care about nothing. That's the argument, right? If nothing matters, you care about nothing, why bother? Which would be then ostensibly ammunition for the apologist to say that how could a nihilist live a life with any meaning? And your response would be what?
Me? I would say my response would be that you make your own meaning, that there is no meaning to anything. Everything is equally meaningful, which is not at all. And so you get to decide what kind of person you're going to be. There is no reward in the end. There is no punishment in the end. You can suffer in life, but you're going to die. And then it all just goes black. There's nothing else after that. And so you get to choose what you're going to do. And it just so happens that you live in a world surrounded by 8 billion other people whose lives also matter equally as much and as none, and who can experience suffering at least as much as you can. And you, if you know what it's like to feel pain, to feel suffering, then you should have it in you to not want anybody else to feel that way either, or you're just a dick. But the connotation for nihilism is that why bother?
I mean, whether that's an inaccurate assignment to the definition or not, when people speak of nihilism, there is a dark sort of a shadow surrounding the term. How would you address that? Or how would you define nihilism for somebody like me?
Yeah, so I would just say that nihilism is there's like most philosophies, there's lots of different branches of nihilism. There's like this existential nihilism, moral nihilism, relative to all these different things. Some people would paint nihilism as believing that literally nothing exists at all, and there is one branch of it for that. But like for me, I'm a cosmic nihilist, and so cosmic nihilism is looking at the universe as a whole and seeing just the vast scape and scale of everything out there. Billions and billions of galaxies full of hundreds of billions of stars, full of billions and billions of planets. And you've got this one rock in this one measly solar system, and you're one species of monkey on it, and you think you're so fucking star-spangled special? No, you're not. And the fact is that this entire planet could be completely eradicated in the most painful way possible, and it would make absolutely no difference for the Andromeda galaxy. It doesn't matter. Nothing actually matters. The universe is too big for the concept of meaning to mean anything. And so here you are on this planet with 8 billion people like you and a bunch of other sentient things as well. You have the choice was to decide if you're going to be a good person or not, and know that you're gonna die probably sooner than you think. So what are you gonna do at that time? Me, I'm gonna try to make everybody else's time just a little bit better than it was when I got here, and I'm gonna use my little bit of time to try to make everything else just a little bit better, and that's all I can do, and that's fine. I'm not gonna get rewarded for it or punished for it in the end. It just makes things more functional for everybody else, and I think that's a valuable use of my time on this planet. Especially
this is what happens when Forrest puts on his philosophace, right? He has a philosophace, and I admire that about him.
I appreciate that. I am rambling. I am just rambling.
No,
And
I just like
can't
to
help
get
but
you
feel-
started, and I'm fascinated in your perspective because I really do respect it. So, but I was curious because when I hear nihilist, I hear nothing matters. Why bother? You know, I'm surprised I even get out of bed in the morning, and I realize that's reductive. But it's often the public perception of nihilism, and then we get all pedantic about terms and the assignment of terms, and isn't that something else? And so I don't want to get too off in the weeds, but I did think, well, I'd like to hear what your perspective on nihilism is in regard to yourself. So thanks for that. Appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it because, like, you're right. Nothing does matter, and that can be pretty depressing. But it's also incredibly freeing, and like that for me is the point. I think that is the most intellectually honest position when you know about the size and scale of the universe, when you know about how evolution works, when you know about like where we live and how the universe around you actually functions. I think it is the most intellectually honest thing to have that nihilistic point of view. And by having that, you are completely free. You are free from purpose. You are free from dogma. You are free from somebody telling you what you have to be. You get to decide, and you get to make yourself whatever you want. And that makes you, I think, more functionally moral, because you have to rely on that high level moral development of applying universal principles that you reason out. And that means that we're not going to agree, and we're going to have a morality and a society that is, for lack of a better word, intelligently designed.
I do find also that it freed me from my fear of death. Even when I believed in heaven, I'm going to go to heaven and it's going to be all light and music and the family dog or whatever we thought heaven was going to be. And it was weird because I was terrified of death. And it was when I left the idea of posthumous existence, eternal life, heaven, that I thought, well, I'm no longer afraid. Not a big fan of the idea of dying, but not existence, right? Non-existence no longer terrifies me. Or the moment, the second after this life, whatever that was, no longer bothers me. And it's so wacky because it's just the opposite of what you would think, right? Living forever, that would have given me comfort, when the truth, it scared the shit out of me. It was bizarre. But anyway, just my
no, it makes sense.
There.
The idea of, like, you know, you close your eyes for that last moment, and then that instant is the same thing as eternity to your perception. That's wild as shit. Yeah. But it's it is literally no different than the 13.8 billion years before I was born. And so I can just do that again. I was pretty chill then, you know, it's fine.
There's that Twain quote, I hadn't existed for billions of years before this moment, and I hadn't suffered the slightest inconvenience from it. And I feel exactly the same. So exactly.
Yeah. We do. I know you mentioned the chat also. We have already a couple of people in the chat that are here to argue. Let me tell you, the chat's not the place to do it. There's a phone number on the bottom of the screen. If you have an issue with the philosophy that we're espousing, or to the beliefs we have or don't have, there's a number on the bottom of the screen. Pick up your phone, call it, and talk to us. Because otherwise, you're just going to be arguing with nobody in the chat. A bunch of people who don't want to hear you, and you're going to probably just get muted because you're being an obnoxious jerk. So just call in. It's way easier. I'm stammering and stumbling over my words today. I'm just a sleepy little bear. We've got a ton of atheists in the chat, in the call-in studio, and so I just want to let you guys know that we do take atheist calls last, but we are going to move on to an agnostic for a second, because I feel like it builds off of this a little bit. Let's talk to Patrick, pronouns they them, calling in from Flippin' Lemurs, who says, suggestion, objective morality from an agnostic position. Let's talk about it. Patrick, you're on the line with Forrest and Seth. How are you doing today?
Doing good. I hope y'all are doing great today.
Never had a bad day.
You know, the objective morality that I would like to propose to, what was it, Arti? Very, very well spoken, young they them. I'm more old school, so I'm trying to come to terms with this thing. I might be one myself, but it's just. But anyway, I didn't want to get into all of that. It's not about
a person.
Objective morality. John Stuart Mill's On Liberty in a nutshell says, do whatever you will as long as you don't infringe on others' freedoms and liberties in the process. Covers everything. Rape, murder. Tell me something it doesn't cover.
I mean, it's darn close, and it's very similar to the golden rule that kind of spans most religions and philosophies. Just be you and try not to stop anybody else from being them. I don't think that's unique to John Stuart Mills, but yeah, I'm very much down with that idea. I like the idea of freedom being constrained by harm, not starting out with, justifying why you should have a right, but justifying why you shouldn't. You know what I mean? Seth, do you disagree with that?
I mean, acting to minimize harm works for me. So, yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks,
Hey,
Patrick.
Do you have anything you want to add to that?
I was just putting that out there for Arti because, they were really well spoken. I mean, the child, I don't even sound like maybe 8, 10 years old. I mean, more well spoken than I am. I can certainly say
They
that.
were a PhD student.
Artie's not a child. I mean,
Arti was a PhD student. I don't know if you heard what they said there, but they're a PhD student.
PhDs in psychology, I look them level in the eye on many subjects, as well as PhDs and MDs and college professors on any number of topics. Yes, I'm level.
We're gonna move on to the next call there, Patrick, but we appreciate you chiming in.
perhaps an ill-fitting philosophy on Patrick. Maybe an adjustment might be good.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of a tweak there.
It's a whole
by
thing.
the way, philosophies is now my favorite new word that I will be using in conversations everywhere I go. So thank you for that, everybody. Thank
You're so welcome. You're so welcome.
Yeah.
Let's talk to, we've got a couple other calls in line here. Let's talk to, Samar, who just called in a second ago. Pronouns he, him, calling in all the way from Pakistan. My goodness. Says, wants to talk about why he believes in God, what I see day to day. Let's figure it out. Samar, you're on the line with Forrest and Seth. How are you doing today?
Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you for calling.
Is, you're welcome. So I'm a Muslim, and I believe in Allah. I would say Allah is God. It's the same thing. I know I've been through so many Pakistani atheist channels who speak in their native language. But your question today is that why we should believe God, right? Is there any reason to believe in God, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question is, not recently, like a few years ago, I lost my dad. I understand what you guys' point of view is, but okay, beside the theist point of view, sometimes we're all gonna die. We have a fear of death, and one day, as we are taught that we're gonna be in front of God, there will be somebody, if you wanna say it's Allah, God, or Yahweh, whatever it is. But still, and there is a hope to meet our loved ones there. I know that there is an argument that believe or you don't believe. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of that argument. You know how it works. But I kind of feel like it gives me some comfort. It gives me comfort. That doesn't mean it should apply to everybody, but it gives me comfort to think about that. How are you gonna respond about that?
Oh, let me jump in. Can I?
Please. Yeah.
You have landed upon one of the many, but one of the key reasons that people do lean into supernatural thinking, comfort, right? You want to see those you've lost again. The idea of death and dying and not being a forever, or at least an extended being of some kind, bothers you, and it gives you comfort. to think about the idea that there will be a reunion in the cosmos and it will all be good. This is an understandable thing. Human beings have long self-medicated in a great many ways when it comes to the things that give us pause, the blanks in our knowledge, our fears about each other, about the other, about the future, about life and death. So when I hear you say it makes you feel good, it gives you comfort, that's actually an extremely honest way to approach it. But it's only the first step in the conversation. I think the next question has to be, is there any reason for us to believe that it's true, or does it just make me comfortable?
Since it's making me comfortable, I would say I would believe it. I know when I say I believe it, I cannot prove it. I cannot give you an evidence.
Okay, fine. Well, Samar, let me jump in real fast because I'm going somewhere, and I forgive the intrusion, but I want to make sure we're maintaining momentum. So that if I was a devout Christian and I didn't hold to Islam, I didn't buy the Quran, I felt it was the Christian God and the Bible, I was going to Yahweh's heaven, and that gave me comfort. Would you give me just as much credence? Would you say that my faith was just as valid as the Islamic faith because it comforted me?
Oh, that's I know that's a tough question. But on the other side, I would say yes. You believe in some God. Okay, I don't believe in your religion as being a Christian, but I can understand you believe in a God, and probably it's giving you a comfort. So yeah, you can live with that. I mean, you can hold on to that perspective.
Yeah, but would their faith be as valid as yours is my question, right? If that's the measuring stick, it gives me comfort, it fills my heart, it alleviates my pain or fears of pain or separation, it answers my questions, it fills blanks, it works for me, then that faith, Christianity, Hinduism, any other religion, would be just as valid as Islam, right?
To some extent, as I have been taught that if you believe in any deity, you will be judged according to your faith.
Let me ask you one more question. I don't want to stomp on Forrest's time. Let me ask you two key questions, which I believe are the determiners, usually the determiners for one specific faith. Where were you born specifically? Were you born in Pakistan?
Yes.
Okay. What is the primary religion of Pakistan? The most popular?
Islam.
All right, Islam. And
Yes.
what was the religion of your parents?
Islam.
Okay. Do you think that if you were born overseas in my state of Oklahoma, which is a Protestant Christian state, overwhelmingly the people are Protestant Christians, and your mother and father were not Muslims, but were instead Christians, do you think you would still be a Muslim?
Right. Absolutely not. I would be born in a Christian family, so I would be a Christian. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you were born in Mexico, you would more likely be Catholic. If you were born in a part of the world where they practiced Eastern religions, you would be one of those. Do you see how inherited belief and belief systems, do you see how that happens? And that this may then not be about truth. It may not even be just about comfort. It may mean that it's the religion that you were indoctrinated with from the very beginning. But it doesn't mean that it's true, and that maybe all of us who come out of a family and a culture need to do our own thinking, connect the dots, and find out, is there anything there? Would that be fair, Samar?
Yes, but I have a question with that. Suppose I was born in my parents are atheists, and I was born in a family where everybody is atheist. I would be an atheist. So I would be definitely an atheist, thinking whatever my parents, brainwashed me or told me what to do. So
okay. No, I'm going to jump in.
The reason I should believe
I'm going to jump in.
Right. Sure.
It is possible that you would be an atheist, you would be involved, and you'd be raised in a culture where people did not believe in God and did not do religious things. But the difference is that atheism is not a truth claim. Atheism is simply the lack of a belief in God. And we see, I'm convinced more in non-religious homes and cultures, a fostering of education, discovery, curiosity, where we don't tell kids what to think, we teach them how to think. So atheism doesn't have a truth claim with a capital T. It's not a dogma. There's no holy book. There's no hard and fast set of rules. We simply don't believe in God. But every day is more a discovery for people who haven't been spoon-fed a certain belief structure or system. So you will find, I'm convinced, more in non-religious homes, they're teaching kids to go out and be creatures of curiosity. That's different than dogmatic Islam, Christianity, etc., right?
You're right. Can you give me like a 30 second? I'm gonna wanna tell you something. It's yeah, okay. I totally understand how atheism work, what they think, because I've been in touch with so many like Ghalib Kamal in Pakistan, Haris Sultan, and all that. Probably you're not aware of them. Okay, so let me tell you. So long time ago, I was watching some YouTube video, and I saw an experiment there where they gather like few kids in the room, and they put probably a cake or something, and they tell everybody. They put a like chair in the front, and they tell like somebody's sitting there, and they tell him like if somebody's watching you on this chair, somebody's sitting, so please don't eat cake. So they didn't. So even if like if it's okay, suppose there is a God or no, like probably we're on the same boat here that you cannot prove there is no God, and I cannot prove there is God, but it works somehow. What you want to say about it?
I'm not sure I understand your question. Forrest, did you pick up what he was throwing down? I didn't connect the dots there.
I don't think I understood either.
Oh, okay. Apologize. I can repeat that. So, like a long time ago, I watched the YouTube videos where they did an experiment where they gathered some kids in a room, and they put like a cake in the front, and they told everybody, like all the kids, that there's an empty chair there, but
I know what you're talking about. Yes. Yeah. Okay. I know the one you're talking about. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought it was something completely different. I know exactly what you mean. Yes. So the experiment, I'm going to rephrase it. I'm not just to make sure we're on the same page. There's a name for this experiment. It's called like the princess somebody. I forgot what it was, because they messed it up. They made this fantasy character for the children. They put an empty chair in the room, and they said, princess whoever is sitting in that chair, she's invisible, but she's watching you. And they would leave the room, and the kids would believe that this magic creature was watching them, and they wouldn't touch the cake. And then they had a control group where they just had the empty chair, and they didn't tell the kids anything about it, and they'd go and eat the cake because they wanted to have cake. And so, yeah, that's an experiment demonstrating belief. It demonstrates supernatural belief. It demonstrates, using supernatural belief to impose morality and impose not even morality, just rules on children. And that, to me, that's a good example of what religion is. Religion is a domestication tool for humans. If you tell children there's this magical invisible princess who doesn't want you to eat cake and she's watching you, they won't do it. And if you tell adults there's a lake of fire and brimstone that you'll go to if you have butt sex, they're not going to do it. And so, like, for us now as humans, we're having to struggle with this same kind of magical thinking, despite the fact that there's no reason to believe it. And most people, I think the vast majority of religious people, Samar, believe the way that you do. It's something that gives them comfort, and it's not really worth their time to dig into. My problem is that the religion doesn't just offer just the comfort. It has a lot of shameful baggage as well. And because the religion works the way that it does, it can be used and has historically been used to justify some really, really evil shit. And people go along with the evil shit for the same reason they go along with the good shit, because they don't want the magic princess in the chair to catch them. Meanwhile, if you give somebody secular morality, they're going to do good things and they're going to avoid evil things because they have a good reason to do it that isn't relying on being caught by some monster in the sky. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, you're right, but I have something to say about it. Okay, suppose
Yeah.
there should be a way to control people. You know, with a bunch of people, you have to have some way to control them. Okay, I know in religion there's so many things added, and probably not everything you find in Islam or in Christianity. Probably few things are added later for some good or bad reason. They don't apply today. But at the end of the day, to control people, how does atheism can do it? I know I can teach my kids, or you can teach your kids some, fair stuff. This is how world works. There is no God. I mean, if there is no fear, I mean, probably like a group of people won't even understand.
Atheism cannot give you morality because atheism is just the claim about whether or not you believe a God exists. However, education can give you morality. The more educated you are and the more you're exposed to different ideas and different people and different cultures and different belief systems, different ways of thinking, you're going to come up with good ways to be a good person, and you're going to start seeing different people as people. The converse of that is that if you have a religious dogmatic way of thinking, you're going to be very ethnocentric by definition. You're going to believe that your way of thinking, your morality, your belief system is not only the only correct one, it is the best way to go about being a human. And that is by its very nature going to dehumanize other belief systems and other people, and it's going to make you less of a moral person in the long run. If you are a moral person as a religious person, it is not because of the religious text. The Quran, the Bible, the Book of Mormon, these books are not good books. They don't have moral teachings in them. They do, but they're not anywhere near outweighed by the immoral teachings. Islam is just as fucked up and horrific as Christianity is in terms of the actual teachings and the stuff that the Holy Book justifies and allows for. It's disgusting. So when somebody is a moral religious person, they are moral in spite of their religion. They're not moral because of their religion. Meanwhile, if someone is moral as an educated person, doesn't matter about atheism. If you derive your morality from your education, you're building it for yourself. You're making morality that matters to you, and you're arguing and discussing that and breezing it out with other people.
And I think
also,
the most important thing, I think Samar is moral despite his religion. Mm-hmm. Right. I think he's an example of that. You just said that, some of the parts of Islam may not add up and it may not be true. That tells me you've already begun to parse out some of the stuff that's problematic. I'd be curious, by the way, in Pakistan, how that would go over if you were to stand on a street corner and say part of the Quran may not be correct. Right. I'd be curious to see. I don't want to see you unsafe. But how do you think that would go over, Samar, if you were to be honest about your thoughts and say, I'm not sure it all works in Islam? What would they do to you?
Oh, no, definitely.
Okay. But you have in your mind begin to sort of deconstruct and work out, well, does that add up? It may not be correct. It might have been added later. We're not really sure. I'm not sure I accept it 100%. You're doing your own thinking, and you are doing so as a moral creature. And I find that interesting.
Yeah. What I think is the most important thing, Samar, that you said was towards the end there, you were saying, like, if people don't have that fear, like, how can you make sure that everybody is moral? And I think that is another thing that you said that's very honest, is that is where religion gets its power from. It gets its power from fear. And I think that tells a lot about what that morality actually is. If you are concerned about heaven and hell, but you're not really that concerned about like human well-being, about taking care of people, about being accountable for your own actions, if you believe in the Christian morality where all sins go away as soon as you are saved and you get to go to heaven no matter who you are and all these things, like, you're not actually a good person. You're a bad person on a leash. And for offering an atheistic secular morality, I think allows a lot more freedom and a lot more morality in the long run, even if it is going to be harder to get there. Does that make sense?
It does. I do have questions about my religion, but on a side note, I want to ask something. I know probably you were an atheist as you were born, or probably you belong to a religion. but there is always a fear. How did you guys came out of that fear? Because I fear a lot. I mean, I'm gonna die one day, and probably there is somebody. It could be Yahweh, God, Allah, or anybody there. I'm gonna respond. So what I'm gonna say? How did you get out of that fear? I don't want to be in hell.
I give it to Seth, and then we'll move on because I didn't really have that deconstruction process.
I did. Let me tell you, Samar, when I was questioning my faith and I finally decided to listen to the things that didn't add up and the alarm bells that were going off, this was what we call a mind-heart tug of war, because in my brain I was like, I know that hell theology is bogus. I know it was made to control people. I know there's no reason to believe the stuff that's in the Bible at face value. So the teachings about hell, depart from me, you who are cursed, into a lake of everlasting fire, right? This is the same book that said that donkeys spoke Hebrew, that people lived to be almost 1,000, that there was a guy who survived for 3 days in an underwater prison fish. You know, it's all kind of crazy, wacky stuff. But
Islam, yes.
Yeah. The Quran's got all kinds of wacky stuff in it, right? And so what I had to do is two things, actually three. The first thing I did was I gave myself time, because it took me a year and a half, 2 years after I myself came to the point where I didn't believe in Christianity to get over my fear of hell. That part of me, there's so much scar tissue there. It took me a while to get over my sleepless nights and my fear that what if I get it wrong? I don't want to fry. Secondly, I got into the history of my religion. Where did it come from? Who wrote the books of the Bible? What are the criticisms of that? How many versions of these stories are? What have other people written about hell? And who were they? And how is hell theology used to oppress and harm and control people, right? So once I understood more about the mechanics of the religion, that was easier. And then the third thing I did was I began to find community with other people who had escaped religion, and we shared stories and encouraged each other. And said, you know what? I'm going to encourage you that you have value and you would have never deserved hell. And a moral God would never send you to hell. A moral God would have never conceived of hell. And that kind of community helped me to heal. But it was a long process. Give yourself some grace, ask yourself some questions, but let's find out where all these hell theologies came from. And I highly suspect you will discover they are very much man-made, and they were used to control people. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time. I'll think more about it.
Right on.
It's a journey, bro. I mean, life is a journey. You know, just give yourself permission to take that journey honestly, even if it gets uncomfortable. Life's messy, and I hope if you learned something, call us back because we want to know. Okay.
Thank you so much, Samar.
Yeah, definitely. I'll do more research and get back to you guys. But thank you.
Appreciate you, brother. All right.
Take care, Samar. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Really, really nice.
Hell was tough. And it's one of those things where you just feel dumb because in your brain, you're like, I know it's bullshit. I know there's no way this is true. But man, when you were 4 years old, and from that day forward, your parents said, God is watching you. I remember a time in my life, in my young faith, when I would walk through the day, and I was always whispering the prayer of forgiveness under my breath because I thought, oh God, I just sinned. Oh, I just had a bad thought, or I just said something shitty to somebody else, you know. Dear Lord, please forgive me all my sins and cleanse my heart, and I'll do better next time. And I got to the point where it was almost like a cadence, because I thought, well, if the rapture happens in 5 minutes and there's sin in my heart, what if? And in that way, I do feel like that teaching this sort of fundamental dogmatic hell theology, especially to children, but to anybody, is a kind of abuse. It's dehumanizing, it's terrifying, and there are people who will wrestle with that for the rest of their lives. But I'm proof you can escape, but it's a long road. Okay?
Yeah. No, for sure. I really appreciated Samar's call because he was very, very honest about all this. And like, I love somebody who can really, grapple with their own belief these ways. So I'm glad you were here to talk to him because I would not have been as useful, not nearly. Also, you mentioned a brain heart tug of war just a PSA for the people watching: if you are ever actually having a tug of war between your brain and heart, call a doctor. We've got a few more calls on the line. I was really disappointed when we talked to Arti a little while ago, and they asked, why does anything matter if it's all just atoms? And I wanted to explain, well, matter is atoms. That's the whole point. But I missed it.
Biologists, just stop.
Right.
Just stop it. You guys do
funny.
this at conventions? Do you do these sort of
really
science jokes?
Yes. It would have been really fun. Do you know what the taxonomic order of all lizards and snakes is, Seth?
No, I do not.
It's called squamata. What do you say to a sad lizard or snake?
I don't know.
What's squamata you?
No, that's it.
Take that
I'm
home with
disconnecting. I'm disconnecting, and stop inviting me to close the show. I can't do it.
We've got a few other people on the line here that I want to talk to. We've got a few more atheists that have been a few more theists that have been pouring in, and then at least one agnostic that I want to talk to before the end of the show, or one atheist I want to talk to before the end of the show. But for right now, let's talk to, I'm looking at number 27 there. Talking about Nikol. Calling in from Armenia, says humanism can't fill the void former or present God belief systems can. Let's talk about it. Nikol, you are on the line with Forrest Seth. How are you doing today?
I am good. How are you?
I'm awesome, man. So why do you think that a God belief system, you said former or present, I don't know which particular God, why do you think that this God system is the best way to get to a moral stance or a moral standpoint that humanism can't reach?
Well, I wouldn't say it's like the best way, but I think I try to look outside my religion, which is Christianity. And I think what I saw was not like convincing that it can actually replace my current belief system, because what I saw was like the world where you can't trust anyone, and it's just like people trying to improve it all the time but keep failing.
Okay, so when you say trust anyone, do you mean like in terms of like finding scientific truth? Do you mean in terms of like being a good person? Like what do you really mean?
I mean, like trusting human beings, because, well, like the laws, they get more and more complicated because people always find like the ways to trick each other, to kill each other, especially with what's going on right now in the world, like generally. And it's just like not convincing to me.
Right. Does any of that change under like a religious framework? Do religious people never cheat or lie or trick or hurt each other in ways that require new laws to be passed?
Well, even if a person is not a believer, like sincerely, but still can be, I don't know, like can wouldn't do bad things because they're convinced that they'll get punished for it. I think it's better than if this person will just be convinced that there's no one out there and I can do anything I want and I can profit and benefit, and like I can basically kill someone or rob someone. Nobody's going to find it out. I mean, in that way.
What if they're not convinced that they're going to go to hell for it, but they are convinced that those actions would cause undue harm to people, and they've been taught to care about people, and so they don't do it because they care about people?
In that case, I think their community, if it's religious, is going to keep that person in line because, that system itself has already the rules, and they'll make sure that one...
I was just talking about a non-religious system. So a hypothetical, completely atheist society. So we have a society that has never even heard of a God before, but they are taught the same way that people are taught about God from early on. These people are taught about the value of human life and about the value of progress and about how the only reason we have everything we have today is because we work together and we care for each other and we take care of each other and we make sure that everybody's okay and that we provide for the people who need it the most. We all give whatever we can. We all take only what we need. They're raised with this kind of very basic moral system where they value human beings, they value each other. And so in that society, people are at least as moral, if not more moral, than in any secular society. Why is that not an acceptable framework for you?
Well, it sounds like utopia. It sounds like what communists were promising.
No, that's just morals. That's just basic moral teaching, is telling kids, hey, you live in this society. This society functions because of everybody in it working together. We only get to progress when we all work together and take care of each other. Every bit of food that you have, your electricity, your water, your heat, your house, all these things come from other people working to benefit you. So you need to work to benefit them as well. If we are all killing each other, this thing doesn't work. So don't do that. Also, you know what it feels like to be sad. So don't make anybody else sad. That's just basic kindergarten morality.
No,
why could you not run a society based on that?
I do agree these are good things, but I don't think it's achievable.
Can we draw this back to evolution? And this is much more Forrest's territory, but pro-social behaviors being explainable evolutionarily, right? So if I was someone who was, I don't know, I was harming and killing and I was hoarding and I was doing all these other things, acting in antisocial, even destructive, murderous ways, etc. Back in our earlier civilizations, the earlier incarnations of human beings, my chances of survival and passing on my genes were diminished, right? It actually benefited me to act in pro-social ways. So what benefits the other, then benefits the community, which comes back and benefits me. We're able to be safer. We procure more resources. We have a better quality of life. There are evolutionary reasons why we have an innate pro-social, most of us do anyway, pro-social tendency. Because helping the species actually helps us all, which comes back, whether or not there is true altruism, I'll let the other people debate that. But we don't have to look into religion, which honestly justifies a lot of atrocity and harm and murder and rape and misogyny and just bloodshed. We can see evolutionarily that communities, individuals and communities that acted in pro-social ways which reduced harm were the ones that survived and thrived. I mean, am I overstating that or misstating that, Forrest?
No, what you're talking about there is called inclusive fitness, by the way. That's the term about evolutionarily when someone is being altruistic and somebody is taking care of other people, when somebody is doing something that doesn't directly benefit them, but does directly benefit their whole population or even one other thing in their population. And that other individual can then benefit others and others. And you have this kind of like ripple effect where the entire population is benefited, which means it returns back to you as well. That's called inclusive fitness. It is a thing in evolutionary biology. And it's one of the many reasons why we do see evolution of moral behavior throughout lots of species. We see moral behavior in a lot of different animals, including we see altruism, even self-sacrifice in things that don't even have brains because it's good for the group, which means it's good for the overall passing on of genes. So there is an evolutionary advantage.
Isn't there even kind of a terrifying aspect to the idea that, well, I'm a Christian, the reason I don't murder is that the Bible tells me thou shalt not kill. It's kind of a terrifying reason not to murder. If a third, like an outside agency has to tell you don't murder people, that to me is a little bit scary.
Right. And that's exactly what we're talking about at the end of the call of Samar, is that you are a bad person on a leash. You're not a good person. Yeah. And so like for Nikol, what you're saying here, it sounds an awful lot like, you know, whether or not this religion is true, it's very useful at scaring people into behaving. Meanwhile, if you just teach people things and try to raise them as good people, then there's no guarantee that they'll be frightened enough to not, you know, to behave the way you want them to. And I think that's a crappy way of running a moral society, because at the end of the day, it's just whoever decides what they want their morality to look like that then preaches that to people. And tells them that they're going to go to hell if they don't agree with them. It's not actually a collective decision as what's good for the actual group.
So, but do you think that all the wars and everything going on right now is because of religion or because of just human like greediness and all that stuff?
You lost me
certainly.
at all. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Forrest. Forgive me. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're fine. I was going to say, of course that is not true, and of course that's never true. There's never a time where all problems and all conflict directly relate to religion. A shitload do, and there's not a single thing that you can get from religion that you can't get without religion, and without. I shouldn't say that. There's not a single good thing that you can't get from without religion, without all the baggage that religion brings along with it. But no, wars and genocide and famine and all these things are going all around the world right now. They, of course, are related to just humans being assholes. But you can fix that if you teach humans how not to be assholes. You can also fix it by indoctrinating them with religion and saying you cannot do this because God says not to, until the next preacher comes along and says, God told me you have to do this. And then you have the Crusades. And then you have any other genocide you can think of that was religiously based. And then you have, even to the most benign, the prosperity preachers here in this country who say it doesn't matter if you're on food stamps and you're starving, send me your last $40 and you'll be blessed. There's any number of people who do very little evil things all the way up to full-scale genocide because their religion told them to, and because they convinced other people that this God wants them to do that as well. So your religion, yes, it can be used to push morality. It can also be used to push horrible, evil, terrible shit. Meanwhile, secular morality doesn't really work that way. There have been evil atheists, but there has never been a war fought because of atheism. There has never been a genocide committed because we just have to prove there's no God. There have been no atheist crusades.
I also think that if we're going to talk about global conflicts, we can't ignore tribalism, tribalistic thinking. Yes. And what are religions, if not in grouping, right? There's us and there's them. And I'm not saying that tribes are exclusive to religion because they exist everywhere, but there are very many forms, some more benign than others. And so when we see the history of warfare, tribalistic warfare, we see us and them, the in-group, the out-group, me and the other. And I think that's that informs a lot of what you're talking about, much more than secularism or non-religious morality. So,
for sure. Nikol, we'll give you the last word and then we're going to move on. What do you think about the things that we said?
I think, basically the only states that were, like, as you said, like atheist states, like the USSR and China, maybe right now, partly, they didn't show a great example of being a good society, I think.
All right, that's incorrect. I'm sorry, Forrest.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
This has been studied. I wrote about this in a book called Confessions of a Former Fox News Christian, where we looked at the religiosity of nations around the world, and it is the less religious countries, places like Japan, etc., that actually have a greater quality of life. They have less crime. They have less misery overall. There is a measuring stick called the World Peace Index. U.S. News and World Report and Statista, Pew, Gallup have done other studies looking at the religiosity of places around the world. If you want to see high crime, warlikeness, domestic violence, murder rate, theft, you want to see problems with society's infrastructures, be it healthcare, etc. You look at places that are highly religious, like the United States, and of course, all the Islamic nations, right? Those are the ones that struggle more with basic issues. Oh, there's my wife. So this idea that a secular nation is less moral is just wrong.
Yeah, I also want to just reiterate what I said a second ago. Like, none of these people, Stalin and Mao did not stand up on a platform and say, there is no God, so let's go kill some people. Like, that wasn't what happened. They were evil assholes, and they acted like evil assholes. They used state religion, they used state control to go out and take over their people and to do horrible things. Fascism is not this thing that is just tied to religion or tied to atheism. I do think that especially like evangelical Christianity sets you up for fascistic thinking, but that's a completely different conversation for later. The point is, you can't point to China or to Russia and all these things and say, look, these bad people were this atheist people did bad things, as if that's a representation of atheism. But what you can do is you can look at the Catholic Church and back in the Crusades and say, hey, look, here is an example of someone saying God will give you absolution if you kill as many Muslims as possible. That kind of shit did happen. So like, it's not really a direct comparison, nor is it a fair comparison at all. Anyway, with that, Nikol, we've got to move on. We've only got 10 minutes left in the show, and I've been a terrible host and forgotten to read the super chat. So I'm going to move on to that. But I appreciate you calling in. Please feel free to call back in.
And I have to say, when Linus and Gracie were barking, and I said, my wife, I'm not married to a dog. My wife is pulling into the garage, which is their cue to go crazy. But of course,
you know what?
Pedants in the chat are saying, is Seth married to a dog? Yeah, you're funny. You're funny.
I wasn't going to say it. That is very funny.
Yeah,
I wasn't going to say it, but that is very funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a bunch of super chats, and also I was supposed to do announcements. This is my actual job. We've got, first of all, let's look at Jonathan France sent $9.99. Go away pop-ups. I'll do the first $10. Also, Forrest, can you define your anti-theism? What are your thoughts on cultures that practice non-harmful religions? Just thinking as an atheist, I will take answers off air. Anti-theism is the belief that religion is not only wrong, but it is also harmful. And so even if somebody is practicing non-harmful religious practices, they are still behaving in religious ways. They are still allowing themselves to be bought in by bullshit. And if somebody can make you believe absurdities, they can make you commit atrocities. It is still a slippery slope and still a very dangerous game to play. $5 from Zerith Moonpaw, looking for hot ear action. Forrest, hook me up, my guy. Fucking shit, dude. Seth, loving the butter smooth voice. You could read a recipe for cornbread and I'd swoon. Seth, say cornbread things while I do this.
Cornbread things, and I'm just weird. I feel weird, but in a good way. But thanks for the kind words.
Some dude rubbing themselves silly over that. Rainbow Wolf sent $4.99. There's a trans agenda in science and vaccines are evil. Equals I just sat on my ass listening to twats on Fox News, or maybe means twits. I don't know. I did no actual science. Alazaro K sent $5, starting the year right with a good live stream. I was on the last AXP of last year and the first one of this year. How wild is that? These people gotta fire me somehow. Nero sent $10. Happy 2025, Seth and Forrest. Another orbit around our beloved ball of nuclear fire. Forrest, fast pitch me. Oh, fast pitch me. Are you concerned about the possible effects of a chirally mirrored bacterium being developed? I don't know. So chirality is to do with molecules, not with bacteria. So I don't know how that would work or what that would be. I'm not specialized in microbiome, but in terms of new bacteria being developed, I'm always worried about that, but only insofar as I'm worried about any scientific advancement. It sounds really freaking cool. If anybody can tell me about chirality expanding to whole organisms, please send that shit to me. That sounds very interesting. Miranda Rensberger, $10. There may be no talking donkeys in this world, but there are definitely some talking asses. You're listening to two of them right now. TG sent $1.99. Love, Forrest and Seth. Happy New Year. Thank you very much. We've got Flying J 2001 sent $5 to say some very sweet but very untrue things about me. Thank you very much. Nero sent another $5. Sex, slaughter, and cooking, the new eat, pray, love. Hell yeah. Ben Jones sent $10. How significant is the finding of RNA, DNA on meteorites in space? Are we one step closer to finding how life was created? I can see how meteorites with RNA or DNA crash in the ocean life form. So what they're actually talking about here is that there are 5 nitrogenous bases that make up nucleic acids. They are adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine, and uracil. We have found all 5 of those now on meteorites. And yes, we have seen also how simple RNAs, what we call oligoribonucleotides, can self-polymerize. So yeah, this is absolutely a step towards our understanding of abiogenesis. It's real fucking cool. LB sent $5. can't read my, no, he can't read my philosophy space. The new Lady Gaga hit. Soupy dude, don't like that. Sent $10 and no message. You just wasted $10. Artemis sent $5 fake dollars, fake British monies. This is Ari from the call. My phone shut off, so the call dropped. Sorry, that's okay. You were a great caller. Thanks so much for the patience and the answers. We hope to call back sometime. You were really cool. And Lenny sent $5 fake European dollars. If you think raising a family is hard, you need a better necromancer. Those are the super chats. Also, really quickly, before we move on for the last 5 minutes of the show, is announcements. There's a lot of them, and I didn't read them because I'm bad at my job. One of them says, send a super chat and we'll read it. Whoops. If you like what we do, please consider joining our Patreon or becoming a channel member. You can also pick up AXB swag at tiny.cc/merch ASA, or say ACA. Don't go to ASA. Who knows what that'll take you to. And want to send a big thank you to the crew, the call screeners, the moderators, the note takers, the audio operators, the video operators, and all the other cool people to make this show possible. Those are the announcements. And now we can move on to one last call. Seth, are you prepared?
Just pick it. I'm ready.
Okay. Is it cool with you if we go for line number 10?
Whatever. I actually don't have that window up. I trust you. Let's do it.
Okay. I'm going to take this call because the ACA has historically been a very progressive and productive organization that sticks up for marginalized communities all around the world, including trans people, even though there's a lot of dickheads in our comment section that doesn't think that should happen. And so we're going to talk to this person here. This is Jason, pronouns he, him, calling in all the way from Australia with two very interesting questions. So let's talk to Jason. How are you doing today? You are on the line with Forrest and Seth.
Fuck yes. I've been wanting to talk to you for ages, and I was really disappointed because I was going to be busy during you hosting the line today. And so I jumped on over to Atheist Experience and saw that you were hosting there and got very excited.
Yeah. So you've asked two questions here that are used to dehumanize and stigmatize trans people quite a bit. I'm wondering in what spirit are you asking these? Do you actually think these are good questions, or are you here to argue with us about trans folks? Because I'd like to cut to the chase on it.
No, I am absolutely not here to argue with you. I am legitimately curious. I don't necessarily have those opinions. They're just things that I can't decide on a side for when I debate myself about them. And I would really like your take on it.
Okay. So the first one is drag akin to blackface? You really don't see why those two things are not even remotely comparable? Maybe it's because you're Australian and you don't have the historical context of what blackface is here in America. Is that what I'm hearing?
That really might be the case. And look, like I said, I don't necessarily believe these things, and I don't necessarily believe that they would be a good thing to believe. It's just that
Sure.
With me, I grew up a Mormon. I came from I've only just kind of come out of my angry atheist stage, my deconstruction. So I still got a lot of leftover things that I'm trying to work through.
Okay.
And the way I kind of was debating it in my mind was, I don't think it's the case. But then another part of me was like, well, but you've got with blackface white people who would dress up and play characters of a marginalized community, and
Right.
or a community that was historically marginalized. And it felt to me that isn't that what drag is? Men dressing up like a caricature version of women. No.
So blackface, yeah. So I appreciate you giving me the context of your upbringing. So it kind of puts this into a little bit of a frame for me. Blackface is not just dressing up as a black person. Blackface was a way to stereotype, marginalize, continue to marginalize, and also more importantly, to dehumanize and to justify the subjugation of black people. Blackface was used not just as a stereotyping mechanism, it was also used as a way to justify looking down on them and treating them as animals, because you would put on this costume and then behave as an animal. A great example of that is this notoriously horrific movie called The Birth of a Nation. Excuse me, I had to call for a second, in which, people would dress up in blackface and then eat fried chicken in a disgusting, sloppy manner in a legislative hall to show what evil, terrible black people would do if they got into these polite white societies, which is another part of the reason also why we stereotype black people with fried chicken in this country as well, by the way. It all goes back to stupid racist stereotypes from the past. So you have this technique that has been used to stereotype, stigmatize, dehumanize, and subjugate people that is absolutely nowhere near even close to drag. So no, drag is not synonymous with, comparable to anything even close to blackface. And anybody who makes that argument is either stupid or lying or both.
Okay. That's awesome. I had no idea it was that appalling back then. So I really appreciate it.
If you get an opportunity and you want to go deeper, do a deep dive, just Google the words Jim Crow, and that'll begin to take you down the rabbit hole. Okay.
Yeah, it's a bad time.
Yeah,
then we've got the other one here where you ask, what if you ask comparing transgender to transracial, and things like this. So this is another one that's really common among the science denying community, where they say, okay, well, if gender is a social construct and race is a social construct, then why can't I just identify as a different race or whatever else like this? The thing is, in order to get through this, you only need to consider literally any other thing that is a social construct. Money is a social construct. Like gender, the circumstances of your birth play a big impact on it. Unlike gender, arbitrary decisions can change how you operate around it, your relationship to it, how much of it you have. So it is a social construct like race and gender. It doesn't behave even remotely the same way as race or gender. Law is a social construct. Marriage is a social construct. Like there's a lot of social constructs out there. None of them behave exactly the same way simply because they are social constructs. So the argument of saying like race and gender are both social constructs, so why can't I identify blah, blah, blah. It's like saying my shoes and my wallet are both made of leather, so why don't I put my feet in my wallet and my shoes in my pocket? Like it's just fucking stupid. And again, it's just a brainless thought-stopping tactic spread around by the science deniers that like to pretend that the science of sex and gender are these new liberal constructs instead of things that have always been around and we have been learning about for the past century.
Okay. Well, now I feel a little bit silly. Thank you for explaining it.
No. Don't
feel silly.
I think discussion are how, I mean, these are hot button issues, and many people are hearing and being approached or encountering them for the first times. Imagine somebody just fresh coming out of fundamental Christianity, right? They're still deconstructing everything else, and now they're getting into the wild, weird world of the human condition beyond the basics that they were indoctrinated with. And it can be overwhelming. And I think it is through discussions and discourse that education continues. So don't feel silly for asking the questions. I think we're all learning more every day about it.
Yeah, no, that's why I asked you in the beginning, like, are you calling to be a dick or are you calling with serious questions? And I really appreciate you saying like, hey, I was raised Mormon. These are new ideas. These are new things I'm going into. That's all great. Like if these are genuine things that you're grappling with for the first time, I'm happy to take this call and talk about this a little bit. I wanted to broach that first because there's a lot of people that ask these questions earnestly in order to continue dehumanizing, stigmatizing, and how do you say, pathologizing trans people.
Have people ever said, though, I'm calling to be a dick? Like, has anyone actually ever said, like, I am calling to be a dick today? Okay. All right.
I had a feeling you would broach it a bit cautiously because I have seen a lot of your stuff before. Honestly, both of you were quite big parts of my deconstruction.
Congratulations.
I would see things come across my TikTok of Forrest on the line, and I would swipe away because I didn't want my precious face to be swayed. And then eventually I got curious and started watching them, and yeah, big part of it. I love your stuff. I watched all your Reacteria and your the Light of Life, and I love them. And
I'm so sorry.
I recently went through all of. No, dude. This whole self-deprecating thing. You got to stop it, man. You're amazing. I think you're really cool. As for Seth, I recently went through all of your the speeches you've given at conferences and stuff.
Thank you.
I think you're a philosophical genius. Or philosophical might be the wrong word, and I would love to see you and Jeff Goldblum have a discussion because I think voices are important. So.
I've been told we look alike, which is kind of wild, but I love Jeff Goldblum, so I'll take it. I will. I mean, it's not Hugh Jackman, but I'll take Jeff Goldblum. But the kind words are much appreciated. Thanks so much for those.
No worries at all. Thank you. I really appreciate those answers. That was, it was huge help in that kind of inner struggle that I had there. So thank you so much.
No, I appreciate you calling in and allowing us to talk about this in a productive way. And by the way, I have a video on my channel where I talk about all this stuff, but it's like 3 years old and it's just my first attempt and it sucks. I'm re-releasing my video called Sex and Sensibility with updated, new, really good information. It's a lot more cohesive. It's a lot more stuff in there, and I'll have that out by the end of this month, if not in the next couple of weeks. And I include discussions about these very things in there. So I hope you find it useful and learn a bunch of stuff from it. And call in with more questions if you have them.
I've actually been waiting for that video, so I'll definitely watch it.
Right on. Don't watch the old one. We're making the new one. I was supposed to have it out by the end of the year, but I ended up adding like 10 pages to it. And so when I thought I was done, so it'll be out by the end of this month for sure.
Yeah, no stress. Sorry, I've already watched the old one though. I thought it was really good.
Well, you'll love the new one then.
Oh, fantastic.
All right.
Be safe.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
What a surprisingly nice person. I was so prepared to throw down with an asshole.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people. I mean, this is, I get irritated, Forrest, with the people that were like, this issue is settled, no further discussion. And I understand where that comes from, right? Because what they don't want is to say, well, it's still up for debate in the way that, it's a demographic might be worthy of being dehumanized. We don't want to legitimize bigotry. And I think there are people who are terrified of having certainly a public conversation about these things. But I don't think engagement equals endorsement. I think if someone comes in good faith and says, look, I don't get it, I don't understand, I think we have to have these conversations if we are going to improve the discourse, if we're going to change minds, if we're going to evolve our thinking. And I think that's a great example of someone who said, look, I hear a lot of this shit out there, I don't know what to do with it. And then they ask a biologist. And I think that's the way it ought to be done. And I sure like to see more of it. So well played, Forrest. Well played.
Well, thank you. And to the point, like this is it. It is frustrating because there are a lot of people out there that are being deliberately obtuse about this issue, including some prominent biologists who are going against modern biology and arguing that modern biology textbooks are wrong and modern biology research is wrong and all this stuff is wrong because despite the fact that these are the same people who have been on the pedestal for decades talking about how everything in biology is a spectrum and how there aren't any clear-cut answers most of the time and how you have to change your mind with new evidence. Now, suddenly, when we're talking about sex and gender, no. It's actually very simple, and it only matters about this very parochial model being useful. It doesn't actually matter what human populations actually look like or anything like that. And, the person in the chat talking about, I should talk to Jerry Coyne. You look at the last thing that he just put out for the Freedom from Religion Foundation, where he made the argument that trans people are more likely to be sex offenders because the trans people who are in prison are more often sex offenders than the cis people who are in prison. That's a terrible way to analyze data. Anybody with any science training could tell you that's not how thinking works. And moreover, that is literally word for word the exact same argument that racists use when they say that there are more black people in prison for violent crime, therefore black people are just violent. You've just changed the word black for trans and the word violent for sex offender, and it's the same stupid opinion. And you're publishing this as if it matters, and then getting in a hissy fit whenever somebody says, hey, that's fucking dumb, and we're not going to allow that on this platform, which is supposed to be inclusive and bringing people together. So no, I don't think a conversation like that would be productive.
It was very Fox Newsy. It was very Fox Newsy.
It really is. And it's so frustrating because like Jerry Coyne and Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris, they were my heroes for a long time. And I still recommend some of their stuff when it's applicable. I still recommend Coyne's and Dawkins' books about evolution. I still recommend Sam's books about morality sometimes. But like, there's a lot there that just isn't holding up to modern sensibility, and I'm not for it.
All right.
Yeah, I could go on about that for a long time, and I'm not trying to sit here and throw shade at people. Just it's not worth the time. But I would recommend, if you want to learn more about sex and gender and modern biology, and learning more about trans people and intersex people, don't listen to Richard Dawkins or Jerry Coyne. Listen to literally just introductory biology textbooks, which explain the difference between sex and gender, explain who trans people are, explain who intersex people are, explain that sex is not a strict binary and that gender is a spectrum like this. These are things that are literally in modern, like, Campbell biology. Anybody can go and learn it. And also, I've got a new video coming out called Sex and Sensibility. It'll be out this month. Check it out. It'll be a lot of fun. With that, I think that's the end of our show. Seth, do you have anything else to say before we wrap up?
No, not at all. Just thanks for letting me play along. It's always an honor to be back and to co-host with you. And I just have your people call my people. We'll do it again down the way in 2025. Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year to everybody. Indeed. Thank you so much for having me on the AXP. Thank you so much for hosting with me, Seth. I love working with you. Everybody out there, stay curious, stay weird, have an awesome rest of your day, and never stop learning. Bye-bye.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your lies.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.